All right. Hi, guys. So today's agenda. All right. So today, let me just take a look at a couple of essays on national income statistics. I'll go over one of the essays today. And then I want to move towards economic growth, economic development, real nominal GDP, and थोड़ा बहुत ADAS along with PPC and full employment levels और उसके ऊपर देखते हैं because I don't think उसके ऊपर कोई खास ऐसे तो नज़र आ रहा है but yeah mostly to do with this और फिर economic growth के costs और benefits so we'll just talk about a little bit of this stuff कोशिश करेंगे आज ही थोड़ा सा अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट को भी टच कर लें because there's not much in it, right? It's a simple, relatively simple topic. So I think we should be able to do unemployment to quite a degree as well. हो जाएगा, I believe so. ताकि फिर inflation के लिए we have decent amount of time. All right, that's how we'll go about today. Um, all right, let me share the screen. All right, so we did look at the circular flow last time, right? Withdrawal and leakages and all that stuff. Now, today, I want to go over this essay. One second, please. Which one? This one right here. Right, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so you have a question on the screen. Explain how GNI at market price can be adjusted to give NNI at basic price and consider the uses, right? Acha, so ये वाला question can actually be all the way from GDP to NNI भी हो सकता है, right? It can be इस यहाँ पे इसकी जगह they can even suggest GDP at market price and how can it be adjusted to give NNI at basic prices or फिर consider the uses, ठीक है? I'll go over the GDP वाला aspect also कि GDP से GNI का conversion क्या होता है and then फिर GNI से we'll continue with the question. So let me do this up here. So GDP, as we already know, GDP stands for gross domestic product, which is basically the total value of output produced in an economy. उसमें सारे domestic produced goods होते हैं. Okay, even though some Pakistani resources might be used abroad and it might be generating incomes, but that will go in the foreign markets GDP. And then there can be a lot of things that are in Pakistan what is owned by foreigners, and those foreigners do get their incomes returned. But since it is being produced in Pakistan, we'll consider part of Pakistani GDP. So what we want to do is GDP says GNI, gross national income is what it's called. So the conversion basically is from GDP to GNI, we want to consider something called net property income from abroad. What is that? तो फॉर्मूला बता देता हूँ पहले तो GNI का फॉर्मूला है which अगर MCQs में आ जाता है you should be able to calculate that gross national income is you take the GDP which you calculate through the three methods output income या expenditure usually CIGX minus M का method and then उसमें you want to add the net property income from abroad. It's already netted. What this means is that you know how some of us have already done that balance of payment. Balance of payment के current account में we have primary income जिसमें we talk about the dividends paid abroad and earned from abroad because investment works both ways. It could be rent earned from abroad or paid abroad. Interest, again, earned from abroad or paid abroad, net karke, and profit. Okay. So basically, these are the four things जिसको हम net कर रहे हैं. Basically, inflow में से minus कर रहे हैं outflow. All these things that you earn from foreign economies and then what you have to pay to the foreign economies because they invested in your country. So इससे क्या होता है? GNI बेसिकली बता क्या रहा है? GNI ये बता रहा है कि जितना भी पाकिस्तानी रिसोर्स है, regardless of the boundary or the borders, if it's in your country, Pakistan, we'll calculate it. But if it's even outside Pakistan, we will add that. But all those resources जो बाहर वालों के पाकिस्तान में, we have to subtract it because it's going to go in their part of the GNI. So I hope you understand. Everything produced in the country is part of GDP. Everything produced with the resources of the country, whether locally or abroad, is your GNI. उसके बाद, once you have the GNI, you want to convert that into NNI. ठीक है? Firstly, you need to know what that means. GNI is gross national income and NNI is net national income. What are we netting it with? Formula है NNI का. You take the gross national income and you subtract all sort of depreciation that has taken place. Depreciation of what? Depreciation of capital. In your country, factories is a capital. Machines are capital. All those things which are used to produce other goods and services as an input, man-made, is an asset. It's a capital. And when you use them every year, there is wear and tear and breakdown, you know. And so if this year 70 factories shut down, we need to consider that because now they're not going to be able to produce about 70 factory worth of goods. But what if 50 new factories opened up? So we're going to do a net value of it कि 50 factories जो खुली है उससे 50 factories जितना output increase होगा 70 factory worth of output minus होगा तो net effect is minus 70 because of the depreciation. So we would want to consider those. Would you write these formulas? I suppose you should write these formulas actually. I would say it's very important that you write these formulas. अच्छा depreciation के लिए जो दूसरा term use होता है I'm sure the examiner would be impressed if you use it because A2s में जब तक ये हम पढ़ाते थे ये chapter before they moved it to AF MCQs में they used to use the word capital consumption instead of depreciation when you want to calculate NNI. And what is capital consumption is basically all those wear and tear and you know certain things becoming obsolete, the capital becoming obsolete. That's all part of this. This really gives a much truer picture of the country's GDP and its capacity. But one thing that we will also want to talk about here is market price versus बेसिक प्राइसेस, तो ये क्या होता है? इसका भी फॉर्मूला है। फॉर्मूला क्या है? नाउ दैट you've calculated NNI, okay, so let me rewrite. You had GNI at market price, and you want to convert this into NNI at the basic price. They're calling it basic price, which is fair. Pakistani government की statistics में भी हम इसको BP basic prices कहते हैं. In another terms, A levels में हम इसको factor cost, factor price भी कहते थे. This is what this means, and this is how I explained you guys also in class. If in a restaurant, a chef produces a dish, a fancy dish of a pizza, and he says, I am willing and able to sell it for $1,000, because इस $1,000 के अंदर जो मैंने natural resources use किए हैं, जो मेरा chef और मेरी labor use हुई है, और जो मेरा equipment use हुआ है, और जो entrepreneur का profit है, I am including all these four things, and I am willing and able to sell this for $1,000. Let's say I break it down. I'll break it down. Natural resources के लिए 1,000, 2,000 का इसका factor चला गया, and another maybe 5,000 for capital, and I want to keep about 2,000 for myself, right? So this is basically the basic price or the factor cost. I think factor cost is a much nicer and clear word. कि factor cost के ऊपर ये चीज बन रही है, basic price के ऊपर. Okay. Now, when a customer orders this, turns out the customer is paying 1,130 for it. That is the market price, because that's what the customer is paying. Because on this, sorry, I've done a गड़बड़ in the values. ये तो 10,000 का पिज्जा बन गया है. थोड़ा सा सस्ता करते हैं वापस. Let me remove the zeros so that we have 1,000 worth का पिज्जा. Okay जी. इसमें 13% लगा है. क्या लगा है? Taxes. तो बेसिक प्राइस पे टैक्स लगाओगे तो मार्केट प्राइस आएगी. So let me see. So if we have a basic price, and if I add tax on it, I get the market price. Understood? Then what also can happen is कि जी, let's suppose यही basic price है 1,000 की. Government steps in and says, we'll give you 200 ka subsidy on every pizza that you produce. All right. Now what has happened to my market price? Well, now my market price is 800. तो बेसिक प्राइस के ऊपर अगर सब्सिडी मिल जाए तो मार्केट प्राइस गिर जाती है, राइट? तो मार्केट प्राइस इज बेसिक प्राइस प्लस उस पर टैक्स ऐड होता है, लेकिन सब्ट्रैक्ट सब्सिडी हो जाती है. And that's the way you basically convert a market price, sorry, a basic price into a market price by adding taxes and subtracting subsidies to it. You can rearrange it. If market price is given to you, market price has already tax on it. तो मुझे अगर factor cost पे जाना है, market price में tax लगा हुआ है, I want to subtract it. And इसके ऊपर सब्सिडी की वजह से मार्केट प्राइस कम हुई हुई है, तो मुझे सब्सिडी ऐड करने की जरूरत है. एंड दैट्स हाउ द बेसिक प्राइस टेंड्स टू वर्क. ओके. तो अगर GNI एट NNI एट बेसिक प्राइस के ऊपर आपने लेके जाना है, तो मेरे ये ऊपर वाले स्टेप के अंदर, इन दिस स्टेप राइट हियर, once I've calculated this, the next thing I want to do is ये NNI at market price निकल आया है, तो इसको बेसिक प्राइस पे लेके जाना है मैंने. NNI at बेसिक प्राइस लेके जाना है. So this is what I'll do. I'll take this NNI at market price, which I've calculated. I'll subtract the taxes from it and I'll add subsidies to it. ये actually तुमने फॉर्मूला और वर्डिंग के अंदर ही समझाना है ये पूरी कन्वर्जन, क्योंकि ये टू में क्वेश्चन बनता था. तो फॉर अबाउट 6 marks, this is what I need, and obviously in words also, explaining each and everything what GNI means, because remember, question ke andar, they've written GNI, NNI. That means there is a mark for you just to say that GNI stands for what and NNI stands for what, and what does market price means and what does basic price means, you know. Okay. And then consider their uses. What are they used for? What is GNI used for? Well, GNI is used for that we want to know that what value of output is being produced by the nation's resources. ये GNI करता है, whether it is in the local market or it's abroad. Okay. And what's the use of NNI? Well, it tells us the country's capability after depreciating the use and wear and tear of the resources. Which one is better? NNI is much more better to calculate. However, ये जो depreciation की number है, there's a problem with this depreciation का number. You know how most of you are accounting students, and in accounting you do depreciation using straight line method or reducing, whatever. But अगर आप एक company का करते हो, तो it's a very simple process. एक company का depreciation निकालना आसान है. एक पब्लिक लिमिटेड कंपनी का गवर्नमेंट के लिए डेप्रिसिएशन निकालना बहुत आसान है, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट के पास पूरा रिकॉर्ड होता है पब्लिक लिमिटेड कंपनी का. इनफैक्ट प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी का भी होता है. तो ये दो तो आसान है. Country has depreciation numbers for these two. But what about all these small and medium businesses which are not limited companies? वो तो tax file करते हैं, but they're not doing depreciations and things like that. Probably they don't even know the concept of depreciation as such from the accounting point of view, because they don't have a proper way of managing books. I'm talking about small businesses. So ऐसे level पे government, how are they supposed to do the depreciation का element, which is one of the limitations that, especially for developing countries, it would be a very complicated process to calculate the depreciation, and that might not give a reasonable number for a country to go with. ठीक है? So this is how it's done. बाकी notes के अंदर you can take a look at these further if you want to. All right, moving on. Today's agenda, what I wanted to do was, let me see. Yeah, let me just take the question and then I'll argue it accordingly. ठीक है, I'll take this question. How much is it for? 8 marker ही है कि 12 marker है? That's strange. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, दोनों questions उठा लेते हैं. दोनों question is of discussion for us for this part. Sorry. All right, let's take a look at it. So you have 2A, you have 2B. Let's take a look at both of them. So first one is explain the difference between growth in nominal and real GDP and consider the uses of both. Nominal or real किस लिए use होता है? उससे पहले this chapter is about economic growth. ठीक है? Economic growth, right? One second, let me just check something. All right. Okay, I just wanted to see who all is here for now. Okay, जी. सबसे पहले you need to know the difference between economic growth and economic development. I have spoken about it many, many times, but let me do it one more time. Economic growth versus economic development. I am for economic development, but maybe not so much for economic growth. Isn't one dependent on the other? Let's see. Well, economic growth is purely about producing more output. That's what it's about. And economic growth is actually a rate. It's a percentage. How do you calculate this percentage? You take this year's GDP, you subtract it with last year's GDP to know the difference, and then you divide it with the last year's GDP to see कितने से growth आई है. Whether it's 3%, 4%, तो last year अगर 100 billion की आई है और 5% की growth हुई है, तो इस साल 105 billion की GDP हो गई. That means more output. That's excellent. But is that really excellent? We'll talk about that in just a bit. But economic growth actually दो किस्म की होती है. एक economic growth होती है जिसको हम बोलते हैं actual economic growth, and the other one is the potential. What's the difference? Well, PPC के through समझाता हूँ. Actual GDP is when you have capital in consumer good and you're at point A and you move towards point B or you move towards point C, that's actual growth. However, the potential growth is an increase in the productive capacity. Actual क्या है? Using unused factors of production. If you're inside the PPC, I think last year का production possibility curve का question है. I did examiner's assessment checking of this also. और इससे A से B, B से C के ऊपर जा रहे हैं. एक हमने explain करना था कि जी ये बताएं कि what is the difference between a country's reduction in unused resources versus increase in country's productive capacity. Okay? या यही क्वेश्चन को मैं ऐसे भी पूछ सकता हूँ, what is the difference between a movement from inside to outside, inside to on the curve, and a shift in the PPC curve? दोनों तरीके से पूछ सकते हैं. एक में potential economic growth आ रही है, that means your country's productive capacity has increased. Obviously इसके reasons क्या हैं? Labor productivity का बढ़ा देना, machineries, technologies का use कर लेना, discover करना natural resources and things like that, right? और unused resources का क्या तरीका है? Well, simply increasing aggregate demand in the economy. You increase the aggregate demand and more output can be produced. Simple as that. Basically employing the unemployed resources. And now when we say unemployed, that doesn't mean I'm talking about labor. I'm just talking about all factors of production. मेरी factory में machinery unemployed है, unused है, I'm at point A. I start using them more, A से B पे आ गए. I use them at their full capacity, मैं point C पर आ गया. Simple as that, right? I add new machines, मैं point C से point D पर आ गया. If I add new machines, that's what it's about. ये तुम्हारा economic growth का concept है. Purely, fixated on output. Economic development is about improving living standards of all citizens in the country. How do you do that? By improving the infrastructure. What else? By making hospitals and making it accessible for everyone, or maybe schools and colleges, or training facilities. They might help you with increasing the outputs and achieve economic growth, but economic development is more about improving people's well-being and quality of life. It might not be coming, it might come at an expense of economic growth. You might want to give up current economic growth in order to build all these capital goods, which may help us in the long run. Because remember, जब हम अगर कंज्यूमर गुड्स से कैपिटल गुड्स की तरफ जाते हैं, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के ऊपर फोकस करते हैं और आज कुछ सर्टेन गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज नहीं बनाते हैं, तो आज कंज्यूमर सफर करता है। लेकिन जब ये सारी चीजें आपको उसके बदले में मिल जाती हैं, तो देयर इज अ प्रोडक्टिव कैपेसिटी, देयर इज अ शिफ्ट इन द पीपीसी कर्व आउटवर्ड, एंड दैट इज बेटर फॉर द लॉन्ग रन सिचुएशन। आई होप वी क्लियर विद द टू आइडियाज। बहुत अच्छे से तुमको ये समझाने आने चाहिए। Now, I said something about what is the difference between growth in nominal and real. So this is what I said just a while ago. कैसे जीडीपी के अंदर ये निकालते हैं परसेंटेज, राइट? न्यू माइनस ओल्ड डिवाइड बाय ओल्ड इनटू 100 करके, अगर 100 की जीडीपी थी और 105 पर चली गई है, तो व्हेन आई डू कंपैरिजन टर्न्स आउट 5% ग्रोथ आई है। जीडीपी 100 से 105 बिलियन डॉलर पे अगर जाती है, तो डज दैट रियली मीन देयर इज मोर आउटपुट प्रोड्यूस्ड? तो उसको हम ब्रेक करते हैं नॉमिनल और रियल के अगेंस्ट। ऑलराइट, hear me out now. When we calculate GDP, we said GDP is simply the total value of goods and services produced in the country. कैसे निकालते हैं? प्राइस को मल्टीप्लाई करो क्वांटिटी फॉर ऑल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज प्रोड्यूस्ड एट करंट प्राइसेस, जो मार्केट में रेट्स हैं, और हर हजारों चीजों को सम अप कर लो, और तुम्हारे पास वैल्यू आ जाएगी 350 बिलियन यूएस डॉलर। ये पाकिस्तान की जीडीपी आ जाती है आपके पास। पाकिस्तान ने 350 बिलियन यूएस डॉलर्स वर्थ ऑफ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज प्रोड्यूस किया। ये सारे फाइनल गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज हैं जो तुम और मैं कंज्यूम करते हैं, फ्रॉम मोबाइल फोन टू कार्स टू बिस्किट टू एजुकेशन टू ऑल दोज थिंग्स जो हम सीपीआई के अंदर लेते हैं। एवरी सिंगल थिंग प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द कंट्री, 350 billion US dollars. The thing is, ये number can go up because of price going up and or quantity going up. दोनों की वजह से ऊपर जा सकता है ये number. Okay, but the thing is, what if it goes up because of quantity and not price? That's fantastic. That's really good. People don't have to pay higher prices, but there are more goods and services available for everyone to consume. That's pretty good, right? The other thing that can happen is no change in quantity and higher price. People might be making more money, but they're paying more prices for the same goods and services. Doesn't really improve their living standards. They're buying the same amount of stuff, but just at higher prices. So that's not really good also. And then you can have this going up and this going up. Okay. इसमें भी there is an element of goodness and an element of not so goodness. And the worst would be something like this. Let me tell you what the worst is gonna be in this. The worst is कि ये 350 की वैल्यू ऊपर जा रही है, क्यों? क्वांटिटी गिर रही है थोड़ी अमाउंट से और प्राइसेस बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रही है, जो पाकिस्तान एक्सपीरियंस करेगा इस साल। फैक्ट्रीज बंद हो रही हैं, आउटपुट की प्रोडक्शन गिर रही है, लेकिन क्योंकि चीजें बहुत एक्सेप्शनली महंगी हो रही हैं, हमारा नेक्स्ट ईयर का जो जीडीपी का रेट आएगा वो 350 से भी ऊपर होगा। And we're gonna say that despite, the politicians will come and they're gonna say that despite of so much uncertainty and IMF issue, we were able to raise our GDP from 350 to, let's say, 360 billion. That is something to be very proud of. But technically, they're lying to us in terms of living standard, because what people will feel is our GDP might have gone up, our incomes might have gone up, but we were not able to consume as many goods and services as we were last year. So technically, we are really doing not so well. You understand that? So nominal और real की बात ही यही है. Nominal GDP is this 350 ka number, which can go up because of price, which can go up because of quantity. It can go up because of both. Either or वाली situation है and an or वाली situation है. But real GDP will only rise if quantity goes up, because the real measures the purchasing power of people. Are you able to consume more or not? Nominal only looks at the monetary. I might be happy that I'm making more money next year, but I might not really be happy because I can't buy the same amount of goods and services with that. And we're going to experience this year. ठीक हो गया? So that's our idea. Uska proper, I think I have given a basic lecture on that also. एक तरीका है conversion निकालने का. Let me work with you an example to conclude this nominal and real का concept. So nominal में तुमने दो तीन बातें करनी है. Nominal GDP में. First thing you're gonna say is that it is not adjusted for inflation. तो रियल में क्या लिखोगे? It is adjusted for inflation. But honestly, you just took one confusing word and you just, replaced it with another confusing phrase. Nominal GDP is monetary and it can rise due to price level rise and or increase in quantity. Real में क्या बताओगे? Real is adjusted for inflation and real shows the purchasing power of money. It rises because of the quantity. Okay? Notes में देखना, मैंने इसके पीछे numericals भी किए हैं. Another thing for MCQ, I believe, what you should know is the ability to make conversions. Let's suppose, एक example उठाता हूँ. 2016 के अंदर वो कहते हैं the GDP is $800 billion. Okay? And the inflation for the year is 20%. That's the inflation. And 2017 के अंदर the nominal inflation is 900 billion. Okay? Have we improved or have we worsened? Let's check it out. According to nominal, monetary, that can go up because of inflation and quantity, the GDP has gone up. Good. But what has happened is you need to be able to calculate the real inflation. Sorry, real GDP. Real GDP ऐसे निकालते हैं. And this is an important formula. It's part of your course. It has always been part of your course, actually. You take the nominal GDP as given above, 900 billion. Okay? You multiply that with the base year index. Now, most of you have done inflation ka chapter. You probably know what base year index is. Base year का index होता है 100. 20% inflation हुई है, तो current year का index क्या होगा? Current year index will be 120. 20% inflation. So your formula is this. You take the base year index, you divide it by the current year index. इसको GDP deflator कहते हैं basically. A deflator is basically a converter जो nominal को real में conversion देने के लिए use होता है. So you take your 900 billion, ठीक है? You take the base year का index You divide it by the current year index, and it's going to spit out a value which is $750 billion. So this is what's going on. Last year, the GDP nominal and real, because ये base year होगा, because इसको हमने base year ही लिया है ना. 2016 is my base year with the index of 100. Next year, 20% inflation. So current next year का index हो गया 120. The GDP has gone up from 800 to 900. Happy to be about rising GDP. लेकिन जब तुमने nominal निकाला, real निकाला, तो it is 750. What is this telling you? Nominal is saying, be proud, Pakistanis, your GDP has gone up. But real is telling me not to be proud of, because technically you're paying more for less goods and services, because ये 800 से 750 पे चला गया है. That means you've lost 50 billion worth of output this year. Less is available for everyone, even though the nominal has gone up. And that's mainly because of the inflationary effect. That's why inflation is not good. You want your GDP to grow at a faster rate than the inflation rate. अगर ऐसे नहीं होता तो तुम्हारा मुल्क technically worse off हो जाएगा. ठीक हो गया? Okay, moving on. So ये तुम्हारा nominal और real का concept हो गया. So पहले ऐसे के अंदर this is, and consider the uses of both. Basically, I think I have explained the uses of both. The real talks about the living standards of the people, and nominal just simply talks about the monetary income wise of the people. Really, real is a bit, it gives a much better picture, okay, in terms of living standard, whereas nominal is sort of like, as we saw, it's not a very clear picture of the whole thing. Discuss whether the benefits of economic growth always outweighs the cost. Discuss the question hai, 12 marks the question hai. You have to talk about the goods and the bads of economic growth. ठीक है? I think in the notes, I have mentioned a few things. किस तरह से the benefits of economic growth. Okay, a few things about the benefits. Benefits के अंदर more output is a reasonable thing to say. More employment is a reasonable thing to say. More income is a reasonable thing to say, because all of these things improve people's living standards. Okay, let me just go back for a second. Consider the uses के अंदर कि nominal और real की values से क्या कर सकते हो आप? Well, nominal is just simply going to tell you what is happening to the monetary value of output. उसमें inflationary effect भी हो सकता है और quantity, but actually the real is the better measure of living standards, because the more purchasing power, the more better the living standard is. Nominal gives you a wrong picture. और ये वाला एक्चुअली एग्जांपल तुम लोग याद करके जा सकते हो, एंड यू कैन एक्सप्लेन इट यूजिंग दिस कि किस तरह से रियल में 50 बिलियन लॉस ऑफ आउटपुट है, whereas nominal is showing 100 billion worth of more incomes for the people, and that definitely is a misrepresentation. ठीक है? Other things, as far as the economic growth goes up, अगर economic growth up हो रही है तो कुछ other than these things, you can talk about that there could be more opportunities of better healthcare and education. You know, we'll assume because of this, because of economic growth, this is what's going to happen. And उसके अलावा क्या हो सकता है? उसके अलावा, well, there can be more economic development, because the more output being produced, economic development can take place, जिसके अंदर the government would, you know, set up the train infrastructure, the bus infrastructure, and that will also open up more opportunities, and people will get higher, maybe like benefits. there will be better benefits because remember, everything is going good. Everyone's getting good incomes. Everyone's working. Everyone's getting better housing, better food. So many benefits that you're going to come. I want you to elaborate on this also. I'm just giving you a few pointers here. Give more output, say what is the result that's going to happen. Not only this, but in fact, you can even talk about how uh, uh, internationally we can trade more. और उसमें आप बहुत सारी imported चीजें भी मंगा सकते हो and you're going to have more access to the imported goods as well, and that we've already discussed includes the living standard of everyone, right? But on the other hand, you have some serious costs of unsustainable economic growth. Okay, so I think मैं थोड़ा सा unsustainable बोल के थोड़ी limitations evaluation की तरफ जा रहा हूँ, but that will come a little later. What are the costs? Well, the costs are inflation. The costs are exhaustion of resources. The costs are exploitation of both workers and the natural resources. Externalities is real problem. Externalities, right? The negative externalities in terms of pollution and all of that, right? So एक तरफ ये तुम्हारे पास costs हो गई चीजों की. Up overall, the question is, let me go back to the question because the question has an evaluative statement always. Discuss whether the benefits of economic growth always outweighs the cost. Will the benefits always outweigh the cost? So this is what you want to argue. I would say, I would say a situation, maybe in a developing nation, okay? In a developing nation where people hardly have things to go by and they are below poverty level, all right? For them, economic growth will probably outweigh the cost because they have a long way to go, all right? And so every dollar more produced, every more individual getting work, every extra output produced, everyone access to food and better healthcare and development is going to really improve their life. Whereas those economies which are near full employment, usually developed nations are near full employment. For these countries, exhaustion is the real threat. Exploitation is more of an issue. And exploitation can work in both ways. If you don't have enough labor, then employer can get exploited as well. But people are definitely going to face externalities of pollution and things. So you can write about that. You can write about the short run and the long run. I think that would be a very important evaluation. How in the short run it might, uh, the benefits might be greater than cost, but in the long run, the benefits might be less and the cost can actually overcome those benefits and can have a much negative effect. I think short run, long run would be a much nicer evaluation to do in this one, right? So you're going to conclude that my conclusion would be that a sustainable conclusion would be that a sustainable economic growth would be the best in which you will continuously think about the cost and you will only grow if you feel that it can be long lasting without hurting the environment to a degree. Do you understand? This is how this particular chapter of economic growth and cost and benefit would technically be discussed. ठीक हो गया? Okay. I think I'm gonna stop here for today. Let me see if I can see another question or of any sort which we can deal with. That's all with what we've not done as yet. थोड़ा सा ADS का लॉन्ग रन और उसको एक दफा देखने की जरूरत है वैसा, बट आई थिंक वो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट और उन सब के बाद वापस आएगा. Alright, so I'll stop here for the day. I'll let you be, and then I'll see you guys on Saturday now. Okay, I'll probably send out a work towards you. Okay, bye bye.